will still be supportive of local initiatives, of local creativity, and therefore of local leadership. So what we're proposing really is an institutional change. So that regardless as to who is the president there, and regardless as to which party is in power, essentially the autonomy that is granted to regional and local governments cannot be overnight diluted, just like how it was done in the previous administration. And perhaps we can go into the details of the proposed constitution as we've tried our best to come up with.
Thank you, Professor Tayao. Before we proceed, the Chair would like to acknowledge the presence of Congressman Henry Ominal and Congressman Lawrence Denuel Fortu. So we've heard the proposed amendments by two groups, by the study group of the Federal Institute, Pilipilaban Federal Institute, and RDH 08, co-authored by our Deputy Minority Leader Rivera. So at this point, the Chair entertains now the questions from the participants. Sign in for your, if you please sign in for your interpellation. So we start with Deputy Speaker Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate the presentation, especially the fact that you recognize that this cannot be done overnight, that there has to be some form of transition, and that there has to be careful thought and careful study before we make this major change. Now, if I may, I would just wish to focus first on the structure that is proposed, both by your good selves and even by two bills that have been filed. And it speaks of a regional government, a provincial government, a city, whether it's component or highly urbanized LGU, and the municipalities. You see, as you yourself said, our situation is unique in that it has a different set of circumstances as compared to the American model or the Malaysian model or even the German model. And that I would wish to point out. Because in the case of the USA, the head of the state is the governor of that province. There was no difficulty in coming up with this form of federal government because historically they had already formed themselves as states even prior to the formation of the entire United States of America. And that is, I believe, the same case with Malaysia. Now, in our case, we were already and continue to be subdivided into 81 provinces. And provincial governors have jurisdiction over component cities and municipalities. Highly urbanized cities are like a province of their own. They neither contribute nor vote for governors. If we were to create a regional government and come up with a regional governor, would we not, and even a regional vice governor as proposed by our two House bills, would we not be creating another layer of bureaucracy? And what powers would they hold? When in fact, well, I was trying to review the matrix. Yes, in the two House bills, the regional governor will have supervision over provincial, over provinces, and independent cities and municipalities, I have not come across such an LGU. I have not yet heard of an independent municipality or independent city. You're either a component city or a highly urbanized city or an independent chartered city. So for that matter, I don't think he can even have jurisdiction over any municipality at all because there is no such thing as an independent municipality. If we would retain the governors in both models, yours as well as the two House bills, the problem of added bureaucracy arises. And second, exactly what powers would this regional government have? What powers would a regional governor have since all other local government units would, first of all, be under a provincial governor in the part of component cities and municipalities. When we speak of barangays, this would be under the cities. Will there be some disciplinary powers that they could exercise over provincial governors when, in fact, they do not seem to have any territory at all? What is the wisdom of retaining, or perhaps the more circumspect question would be, is there a necessity to retain the provincial governors if we are now creating a state? Or if we would continue to have these provincial governors with what powers, authority would a regional governor be able to exercise over provincial governors who definitely have a more defined territory, in that they have a specific number of component cities and a specific number of municipalities. A specific example, if we were to create Central Visayas as a state, as a region, we've had that under the present RDC setup. We do have an RDC chairman chosen amongst either the governors or the mayors appointed by the president, but they have practically, it is more ministerial. You preside over meetings. You cannot even compel the other governors to attend. I served as RDC chair for 2 terms, even as Regional Peace and Order chairman for 2 terms. You cannot even compel your mayors to attend. More so now. If it would seem like merely recreating a present situation of the RDC. So, is there wisdom in retaining the governors? Or if not, perhaps they could be given other representations, but not necessarily to be identified as governors. If we would be in fact creating this layer, this additional layer of bureaucracy by creating a regional governor over and above provincial governors.
The chair would like to acknowledge the presence of Congressman Gus Tamuting of the 2nd District of Paranaque City. The chair agrees or would like to shares the sentiment of our Deputy Speaker as past governor of a province. So I just hope that you will be able to address that in your proposals.
I will try, Madam Chair. Very, very tough questions. There are actually many proposals on the structure of the regional governments. The last one I heard was that the regional governors be elected directly and the provincial system be maintained, but the provinces are to be appointed by the regional government. That's the last I heard. Appointed by the regional governor. But we have not really studied that. No, we have not really studied that, and the implications are not clear. No? So, in our approach, we took the approach as so that there will be less disruption in public service. We proceeded with maintaining the provinces under this system and create very lean regional governments. This is what is called as the hourglass model of federalism. It's hourglass model because if you have an hourglass, it's thick on the top and thick on the bottom, but very sexy in the middle. That means the federal government is large, the regional governments and the LGUs are large local, but the regional government is slim. Our proposal is not a very full of bureaucracy regional government, but what is necessary for inter-province cooperation. I think what is lacking in the Philippine context right now is that, as you mentioned, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that there is really very little coordination among the provinces. Therefore, if there are regional projects that need to be implemented, it has to have the support of the national government for it to happen. For example, our plan to have a international airport in Albay, even though it has been proposed so many times by the RDC, without the support of the national government, it did not push through. Our vision is the region should be able to produce an airport necessary for a certain region without the support of the national government, using regional resources. And for that to happen, there must be some mechanism for cooperation and consolidation in the provinces. And that, I think, is a role that should be played by the regional government. Now, it's true that by creating a regional government, it would entail additional regional bureaucracy and cost. That is why our proposal is, rather than immediately shift to a regional government with directly elected officials and the creation of new offices and all of that, our proposal is first, let's shift to a regional commission. Build on what is existing. And what is existing is the RDC. Build on the RDC, but limit the membership to the provincial governors and the HUCs. The independent component cities, ma'am, are cities which do not vote for the governor of a province.
You're talking of independent chartered cities.
Yes, ma'am. They
Not
have
component. If you speak of component cities, they are components of the province.
Yes, ma'am. Independent chartered cities. No? There are very few of them in the Philippines, but since they do not report to any governor, we felt that it would be best if they report to the regional government.
What about independent municipalities? Are there independent
There are
municipalities?
none, ma'am. We do not have that independent
Well, I saw
municipalities.
this in the matrix.
So many of the other implications, ma'am, have yet are still for discussion by the as you mentioned, disciplining authority.
But will the provincial governors report to the regional governor in your model? Will they be under the supervision of the regional governor?
Can I turn over to Professor Tayo, Your Honor?
Your Honor, that's why in our proposal it's a two-step process. The Organic Act will determine exactly how the local government units will fill up the regional government. That's why yung unang salpo, that's why you do a commission, is the idea there is that the local chief executives can start discussing how they would propose to create the regional government. So yes, of course, all local government units will be subject to the regional government. But how it will look like in its final form, because the Organic Act, para pong yung BBL, will essentially be coming from the local political leaders themselves, of course with the due participation of the constituency. No? They will be the ones to decide whether the current number of provinces, which is quite fragmented, including the number of cities and municipalities, whether it will be retained. To answer your question earlier, whether there is a reason why you retain the province, two main reasons, Your Honor. One, the issue of identity is mainly anchored, the nearest anchor will be the province. No? So it's like, say for example, if you are proposing a regional government where you will have Cavite and Batangas together, they would surely want to retain their identity as Cavite province and Batangas province. So it's not easy to suggest to abolish the province or to radically reconfigure the province. Second, if we are going to have a regional government and we consider public administration in process, the municipalities and the cities would rather be very small compared to the regional government and therefore far in terms of coordination. So the most logical approach would be to reconfigure the barangay. But that again will depend not on the proposed constitution, but with the drafting of the Organic Act by the local political leaders as they move forward. Why the barangay, Your Honor, is because mainly in the highly urbanized centers, there is always this overlap of functions. You already have homeowners associations, for example, and you still have barangays. And in places where you already have mainly industries operating and you still have barangays. There are even barangays which, for some reason, came up with their own revenue code, which essentially is double taxation in some cities. So in our proposal, it's not a question of abolishing which level of current local government unit. It's a question of reconfiguring them, but not the Federal Assembly, or it's not the current Congress that will decide how to reconfigure the local government units. Because the assumption is when the regional government is formed and you have the commission, the governors and the highly urbanized city mayors will find a reason why, or will appreciate the importance of working together in a regional government and decide therefore hopefully how they could institutionalize this partnership.
Thank you, Professor Tayo.
Just as a final statement, Madam Chair,
Deputy Speaker Garcia.
I do hope that we will be able to answer that question, that in the creation of a regional government, while retaining the present setup of provinces, highly urbanized cities, independent chartered cities, component cities, and municipalities, the question of adding another layer of bureaucracy should be adequately addressed. Second, leaving this up to the regions through this 5-year to 10-year transition period where the regional commissions will be able to get all governors on board to finally decide how their particular region will set up their own regional government, opens up chaos and confusion for the entire government, federal government, so to speak, where you would have the specter of 11, 14, 18 regional governments with totally different structures. How then would we be able to apply the same measure of authority and supervision on certain aspects that will continue to be with the national government? So that's all, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair. Congressman De Vera would like to also share their proposal on that particular aspect.
Yes, Madam Chair. In reference to what the Honorable Deputy Speaker Garcia has articulated a while ago, may I just pose some replies to her very intelligent queries, Madam Chair. Thank you. On the issue of creating another tier, the regional government, it is the essence of creating a federal form of government. Imagine in the Philippines, we have 81 provinces, we have 145 cities, we have 1,489 municipalities, 42,036 barangays. If we are going into a federal form of government, then we cannot do it by giving the 81 provinces the state status, because it would be impossible. because each province might not level it up to be a state or to be what we see in the United States of America, where California as a state does not have any provinces inside the state of California. Meron lang po sila cities, counties, or municipalities, and no provinces inside the state of California. And California is as big as the Philippines. So kung ang gagawin natin, gusto natin ng federal system, we have to create this tier in order that a cluster of provinces would form to be a region or a state. Without putting there this tier, then we cannot be converted into a federal system of government. That is my position on that matter. Because each province cannot be a state. And that is why we need, if we are really going to proceed and trying to create this federal system of government, then we have to have that one tier.
To my esteemed colleague, may I just point out that I never proposed that each province should become a state. My question was, as we now group these provinces into their separate regions or states, when we create a regional government with a regional governor, first, this is not creating an additional tier or additional bureaucratic layer. Second, what authority would this regional governor have over provincial governors in terms of supervision, control, and even discipline? That is my, and this is something I hope that we will be able to arrive at with a solution that would create efficiency and not confusion.
Yes, madam, thank you. Now, what would be the authority of the regional governor? As far as discipline is concerned, as written in my proposed amendments, the regional governor would only have administrative general supervision over the governors of the provinces. Same too, since the governors are elected province-wide, that they cannot be controlled by the regional governor. Only on the discipline aspect. What do I mean? The regional governor will see to it that the provincial governor is doing his job. If the provincial governor is not doing his job, then the regional governor can come into the picture and discipline the provincial governor. Same too as the provincial governor to his mayors, same too with the mayors to his barangay chair.
May I just answer that, my esteemed colleague? As a personal experience, and I think our chair shares the same thoughts, if you only have administrative authority, you cannot push for regional programs. As I already said, the present RDC chair cannot even compel governors to attend, nor even compel mayors of independent cities to attend regional development councils. That when governors insist that this is our program of government for the province, all the component cities and the municipalities follow. Why? Because they exercise supervision and control. That is in the local government code. If we will just put a regional governor with practically no control powers or supervisory powers, then the very essence of creating a region where we can have a harmonious development based on a macro picture would be, well, as my experience in the RDC has shown, will continue to be a pipe dream. And we are for creating strong federal states. That is what we want. We might be able to empower the federal state economically by retaining 80%, and I totally agree with that we retain before we remit the 20% to the national government. But who will be able to push through the regional program of government if the regional governor, first of all, cannot even discipline provincial governors? And in your proposal, Congressman De Vera, there are no, you suggested supervision over independent municipalities. There are no independent municipalities. These municipalities belong to provinces. So that is my problem here. We need a strong head of the federal state, but if this becomes just like a titular head, then we just go by the way of the RDC.
Short reply.
Short reply, Madam. Yes, to the distinguished Deputy Speaker Garcia. It's always been an idol to me, especially when she argues. You see, ma'am, the creation of the regional governor is like creating a small president within that region or within that state. That is why, like the president has no supervision and control over governors like that.
No, I beg to disagree.
No, ma'am, they don't have. Under the
Mr. Chair,
administrative
point of
code,
order, Mr. Chair.
under the administrative
What's the
code,
point of order?
I'm raising a point of order, Mr. Chair, on the basis, Madam Chair, on the basis of our procedure. What I am about to begin is that in this meeting that we have to, no, it's the role. Allow me first to explain. Because I think the hearing still in the process of listening the proposal of our resource speaker. We are not yet in the process of approving or deliberating what will be the substance of the provision. So,
With due respect to our honorable congressman, we are now in the discussion period of the two proposals.
so we are now in the deliberation of the proposals, whether or not what to adopt.
We adopted the draft of the draft proposals of the two parties, the PDP Laban Study Group as well as the RBH. So for the reference for our committee output.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the guidance.
Madam Chair,
You will be the next, actually, you will be the next interpolator.
if I may, Madam Chair, and thank you for pointing this out, Congressman Rivera. As you stated, under the administrative code, the President does not have administrative or supervisory control over provincial governors, but the local government code empowers the President to suspend provincial governors. That never would happen in a federal state. In fact, when I was suspended by then President Benigno Aquino, my relatives from the states were questioning how can a president suspend a governor. So that is my point here, that we need to reconcile what would have been perfect would be the American model. But as you pointed out, and as I had pointed out, history already divided them into states, so that there is no other layer of bureaucracy. That the Arizona governor by position becomes head of the state of Arizona. The governor of California becomes head of the state of California. In our case, we are grouping together provinces with their own, historically, own elected governors, and then we shall be creating the regional government. What powers would we be able to give the regional governor that would empower him to push the development agenda and program of government of the region if he cannot himself control the governors? In my case, RDC was, including Negros Oriental, made up of 4 provinces. When we would call for a meeting, we cannot compel the presence of governors. Because I was a governor myself, I was a peer among equals. I mean, I was a primus inter pares, but still, RDC has to work as a collegial body.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Garcia. So the two proponents should take note of her concerns. So the next interpellator is Representative Oaminal.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
To be
I
followed
proceed,
by Representative Marcoleta. Nandito pa ba?
Madam Chair, ibig sabihin, after the discussion, kung walang i-amin, walang i-delete, good as adopted na itong proposal na sinubmit ng resource speakers, which we will submit now to the committee, to the mother committee. Am I right, Madam Chair?
There's a technical working group, no, that will propose the draft and reconcile and then perhaps
Yeah.
come up with a, yeah.
So, ibig
This,
sabihin-
for purposes of just coming up with the output for the committee,
Yeah,
we are trying to,
It becomes the output now of the TWG to be submitted to the mother committee.
yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I have some clarificatory questions in relation to the procedures and the timeline, no, on the provisions.
I'm sorry, Representative Waminal. I just would like to acknowledge the presence of our ACT teacher, party list member, Representative Antonio L. Tino, and Representative Franz Castro, again of ACT teacher, party list. And I'm sorry, Representative Ronald Cosalan of the Lone District of Benguet. Please continue, Representative Waminal.
Thank you very much again, Madam Chair. Now, I wish to bring to the attention of our resource speakers my query under Section 6, Article 10. This is the creation of the Federal Republic. It's consisting of provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. Now, on the third paragraph, it states here, subject to the other conditions provided in the Constitution, the process of establishing regional autonomy towards federalism shall be outlined as follows. First, there shall be a plebiscite for the approval of regional units and territories simultaneous with the plebiscite ratifying the proposed amendments to the Constitution. My query is, this issue to be submitted to a plebiscite referring to the approval of the regional units, will this be part now of the amendments of the Constitution? Saan ito makikita, itong creation ng regional units which shall be submitted to the people in a plebiscite together with the ratification of the proposed amendments of the Constitution?
The Chair would like to acknowledge Deputy Speaker Sharon S. Garin and Representative Ron P. Salo. Mr. Malaya.
Thank you, Your Honor. The composition of the regions, meaning the provinces and the cities which comprise the region, will be attached as an ordinance to the Constitution.
Okay. So it will be part of the finished product that the committee or that Congress should be submitted to the people in a plebiscite.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, proceeding to paragraph B, Parliament shall enact a regional and local government code applicable symmetrically to all regions except etc., etc. What Parliament now are you referring to? The current Congress or the Parliament that will be created pursuant to the proposed amendments of the Constitution?
Your Honor, we are referring here to the Parliament that will be created under the pursuant to the proposed amendments to the Constitution. Parliament referring to two chambers, the Federal Assembly, or what is referred to now as the House of Representatives, and the Senate. So this will be the new legislature, Your Honor, that is created under the proposed amendments to the Constitution.
Okay. How can this Parliament be created? How can this Parliament create such regional local government code when it is not yet in operational? Remember, upon ratification of the Constitution, the proposed amendments, creating such a federal form of government with that Parliament, wala pang election yan eh. So, how can this Parliament now, which is not yet existing, create a regional local government code? So what is the timeline? Whether this Parliament, will this have a relationship to the transitory provision that the incumbent officials or the incumbent members of the parliament shall continue to hold office until such time that the election of the regular members shall be made pursuant to the new constitution? Is that your presumption in referring to that this parliament should create a regional local government code? Of course, that is a preliminary question because, yun nga, paano mag-exist yung regional assembly? Kung kailangan pa mayroong regional local government code. After the regional local government code, papasa pa ng, there is a regional commission which you were referring to. So my first query first has to be answered. What parliament you are referring to? Is it the new, the parliament created under the new constitution? And how could it create a regional local government code when it is not yet in operationalized?
Yes. Your Honor, as I mentioned previously, the parliament being referred here refers to the new legislature to be created under the proposed amendments to the Constitution. Now, to answer your question, how can it create something which it has not yet existed? That will depend upon the transitory mechanisms to be adopted by Congress, by the consultative, by the constituent assembly. So when we proposed this, Your Honor, we assume that Parliament will already be in operation. Now, if members of Congress will be on holdover or whether there will be extensions of term, that is not, we have no proposal as to that, Your Honor. We simply put it there so as to be consistent with the other provisions of the proposed amendments to the Constitution.
Okay, so with that proposal, it presupposes that there will be a holdover. Now, in the transitory provision, if there is no holdover, so there is no parliament that will enact the regional local government code. So if there is no parliament that will enact the regional local government code, then there is no law yet, or I mean, how do you in effect now operationalize the regional government in the absence of a regional local government code? Because ang mangyayari yan, mag-eleksyon muna sa parliament. Now, pag nag-election yung parliament, probably the priority measure should be to enact regional local government code. Pending the enactment of that regional local government code, what happens to the regional government? Hindi pa na-created. Is that what you mean?
Yes, Your Honor. Wala pa po. The regional governments only come into existence after the approval of a regional and local government code. That is our proposal because it would be difficult for the regional governments to operate if there are no details. The Constitution can only provide the skeleton and the principles upon which the regional government will be created. The details of the operations of the regional government will have to be defined by Parliament. And so, without a regional and local government code, there will be confusion on whether the old code will still apply. So, in our studies, we felt it is important that before a regional government can be created, there must be a regional and local government code passed by Congress.
Okay, so I'm asking you now, what's going to happen with the regional government? So even if we approve and ratify the proposed amendments of the Constitution, shifting to the federal form of government, specifying thereof that there is a regional government pursuant to the provisions of that proposed amendments, but it will not still be existing. So meaning we will have to operate, the local government has to operate under
The old
Constitution.
Yes, Your Honor. Under the old local government code.
Yeah. So old local government code, no regional government. So what about now the wealth sharing, the operations, meaning under the existing local government code,
Yes,
ang era nila
Representative
is manggagaling
Marcoleta.
sa national.
Okay.
So, may federal form of government na tayo. There is what we call in the other provisions, the wealth sharing.
Yes.
So, ano mangyayari yan? Kukuha pa rin sila dito sa national government.
That
Will
is what.
not be inconsistent with the provision now of the wealth sharing?
Representative Marcoleta would like to interject.
Madam Chair, since we are talking about the regional government, I think first of all, the proponents or the one who proposed the federal constitution should at least educate each and everyone what was or what is our collective experience since 1991. You remember that the local government code was enacted in 1991. It has been 26 years since 1991. There has been no statement, no reference to our collective experience. Did we fail in our decentralized setup? Because the very purpose why the local government code was enacted in 1991 is to add capacities to our government, to our local governments. So, ano po bang nangyari doon? I think you should be able to present that we failed in some aspects or we probably succeeded in others. Doon lang natin makikilala siguro. And then we can begin to understand why we need to federalize and then adapt still some of the successful experiences. Pero wala po kayong sinasabi. Meron lang kayong sinabi, kagaya po nung yung Imperial Manila po kasi, hindi niya nabibigyan yung ganito. Yung airport po kasi sa Legazpi, ganito. But what about the success stories? And from which we can also adapt. Parang wala kayong ginawa. 26 years of experiment under a decentralized setup. We would like to know if you can summarize to us and document what are our success rates here. Hindi po yung bigla na lang kayo nag-propose ng ganito, hindi man lang natin nalaman. Did we not succeed to a certain extent on our experiment on a decentralized setup? 26 years po ito, Mr. Chair. Madam Chair, sorry po. What can you say? What can you present? What is our limited success here? Kailangan po malaman naman natin. Dito po tayo nag-fail, kaya po sinasuggest namin mag-federalize tayo. But what about the other areas naman na nag-succeed naman tayo? O are we assuming that it is a complete failure? 26 years.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, while the interjection of the Honorable Marcolita is but I think I still have the floor. It's still my time, and I wish the resource speaker should answer first my question. Although the issue raised by the Honorable Marcolita was the one issue raised by the Honorable Yatsun in the previous hearing about the some sort of the justifying circumstance or the justification why do we need to shift to amend the Constitution and shifting to the federal form of government. Why do we need to decentralize? And I understand, Madam Chair, we are now on Article 10. We are tackling it article by article. And now, as I have the floor, I am now asking clarificatory questions in relation to Article 10, Section 6, which is the stage of the parliamentary status in this committee hearing, Madam Chair. May I request that my question would be answered first? Although I understand the wisdom of the query of the Honorable Marcolita,
Yes.
Considering that it delves with the totality on the concept of amending the Constitution, changing the Constitution. So I would suggest that it should be answered accordingly during his time after me, Madam Chair.
You have the floor, Representative Boaminal.
I have already raised the question, Madam Chair, to
Okay.
the clarificatory question to our resource speaker.
Please, Mr. Malaya.
Your Honor, if I understand your question correctly, the Constitution already states, for example, wealth sharing. No? So how come that we have to wait for a regional local government code to be able to create the regional governments and immediately implement the wealth sharing, if that is the gist of your if that is the gist of your question?
More or less, but
Yes.
said in a manner that how could you implement these provisions of coming up with a regional government when you have to enact first the parliament has to enact first that enabling law, and then you say that it will be the current local government code shall prevail insofar as the regional local government operation is concerned. And I'm now trying to reconcile this with the other provisions on wealth sharing. So may wealth sharing na tayo to be distributed proportionately or equally with the different regional government. So when that constitution will take effect, then that wealth sharing will also take effect. But the regional government is not yet inoperational. So where will this local government code, under the local government code, will get their era, which is currently the share of the local government code? What will the national government, ano bang maibibigay ng national government kung na-decentralize na din yung pira? So that's my my clarificatory question.
Your Honor, there are a lot of for example, to be specific about your question was about wealth sharing, no?
Actually, consequential effect lang yung wealth sharing. Kasi sinabi nyo, pag wala pang regional local government code, so wala pa yung regional government. Hindi pa tayo mag-elect kasi wala pang enabling law. So tinatanong ko, anong magiging status ng local government? Sabi nyo, based on the provision of the local government code. So ibig sabihin, wala pang regional government, local government code. O sinasabi ko lang, under the local government code, yung era manggagaling sa national government. But when this constitution, new constitution will take effect, wala na rin yung era. Hindi, I mean, era na manggagaling ng national government. Kasi there is now a wealth sharing, so yung era ng local government, probably, although I have not yet read is manggagaling na sa regional government. So please, okay, that is my clarification kung ano magiging sitwasyon. So tuloy pa ba yung paghingi ng local government from the national government, and the national government has still money to give when 60% or X percentage have already been decentralized to the different federal regions?
So I hope that Professor Tayaw, please briefly answer.
Okay, ma'am. Una po, no, that's why there should be a transitory provision, and as already mentioned po by our executive director here, no, the transitory provision will be determined by the Constituent Assembly. So, which means that what is lacking in the Constitution would be the definition exactly of the powers of and responsibilities of the regional government, of a regional governor or a regional chief executive, however we might want to call the regional chief executive. And doon din po papasok yung tanong ni Honorable Congresswoman Garcia earlier, ano? Kung ano yung powers ng supervision and control ng regional governor. So kaya nga po, two-step process at hindi nga, as much as possible, what we tried to do is to avoid yung, what's this, ano yung tawag niya? Yung unintended consequences, no? Sayang wala na po si Honorable Congressman Marcoleta. Ipapadala po namin, marami na pong pag-aaral on decentralization and local governments. At with due respect po, medyo hindi naman magandang pakinggan na inimbento lang namin o basta gumawa lang kami ng provision. Meron pong pinagbasihan. Marami pong mga magagandang nangyari na sa local governments, pero nakadepende po kung talagang magaling yung local chief executive. Kasi po maliliit yung local government unit. So, doon po sa proposal, naglagay ka na ng lugar for regional governments. You're correcting po, for example, what is lacking in Article 10, where you already provided for an autonomous region. But you couched it in the same article as local governments, and therefore, you're treating autonomous regions like ARMM as if it's the same local government unit. Now, with respect to the wealth sharing, Honorable Congressman, kaya mga po yung existing local government code, yun pa din yung mag-ooperate. So yung era hindi mababago yan, no? What will change is, let's say for example, you are now going to bring down or share the power of, say, transportation. Meaning, let's say, let's be more specific, yung registration ng public utility vehicles, hindi na lang tricycle yung nandun sa LGU. Kung hindi, doon sa regional government, doon mo na din ilalagay yung registration ng PUVs at saka ng private vehicles and so on. Ano? Pag binaba mo yon, doon sa at least pinag-uusapan namin, it cannot be based only in the same formula as IRA because you're fixing the percentages.
Yeah, excuse me, with the kind indulgence of the resource speaker. I understand with that, no? Ang question ko lang is, mayroong hiatus eh.
Apo.
Ano mangyayari during that period of, because on the other hand, there will be no hiatus. Ito lang nililinaw ko eh. Kasi ang magiging consequence nito with this particular provision, magiging must ngayon sa transitory provision that the incumbent officials shall hold office until the new elected officials of the parliament shall be elected, no, pursuant to the new constitution. Gusto ko lang ilinaw yan para pag ma-discuss namin yan, parang this is a provision that will justify kasi unang-una naaprubahan na natin yan kung wala pang parliament so that in the transitory provisions para mangyayari dito the incumbent parliament the incumbent Congress that might continue to hold office until the new election shall be conducted. So, ang mangyayari doon, siya yung mag-enact ng regional local government code, parang sa transitory provision. So that, pag magkaroon na ng new election, pursuant to this constitution, kasama na yung regional government. Kasi kung hindi natin yan gagawin, magkaroon ng hiatus yung regional government. Effective na yung constitution. Pero ang nakalagay naman dito, the parliament will create a regional local government and it is this regional local government that will establish a regional commission and it is this regional commission that will enact. Tama ba yung understanding ko? It is this regional commission that will enact the form of government of that particular region is concerned. So mahabang process yun bago ma-establish mo yung regional government. Now, yung concept natin sa decentralization of powers and including wealth sharing, i-effective na yan pagka, di ba, pagka-approve ng constitution, effective na yung wealth sharing. Who will receive the wealth in the regional government when the regional government has not yet been organized? So that is my
Nag-gets ko na,
yung
Madam
confusion
Chair.
which we wish you to clarify based on your proposal.
Yes. Actually, Madam Chair, kaya nga po doon sa transitory provision namin nila sinasabi na doon ilalagay yon. So dalawa po yung option Honorable Congressman Oaminal, no? Pwede po yung sinasabi ninyo na ang tawag po nung ni Attorney Al, yung lawyer na kasama namin sa study group, attachment siya doon sa Constitution no? Parang ordinance of the Constitution. So pwedeng i-enact mo yan by the existing Congress right now para po ma-avoid yung hiatus na sinasabi ninyo, or minimal muna yung powers na ilalagay mo sa region. Kaya nga po two-step process hindi mo ibababa kaagad yung powers. Where again, this is one example po that we learned from decentralization in 91, where what we did was to overnight devolve all the 5 devolved functions, including 2 tangentially devolved powers as defined in the code. Ang naging disadvantage nung sabay-sabay na binaba mo na wala kang transition, wala man lang technical assistance, nagsuffer din yung pag-exercise ng powers in the process. So that's why in our proposal we do it a two-step process, no? In fact, one of the proposals is ang ilalagay mo lang muna sa regional government, that's why it's an hourglass model, very slim at the regional level, is yung planning function, no? Doon mo lang muna ilagay sa region, which means relative functions on, let's say, traffic management, waste management, no, and so on, disaster risk reduction, doon mo sa region muna ilalagay until such time when you already have the organic act, no, where in theory you already formed the regional government. That's when you can also download the other powers as provided for in the Constitution, which then, as you've mentioned, require the regional and local government code. So, mas maganda nga siguro that while the new Constitution is being drafted, dinadraft na din nung current Congress yung regional and local government code para mas klaro kung ano yung powers, kung may disciplinary o supervisory powers si regional chief executive and so on.
Okay. So that's the last question. There are still a lot of interpellators.
Just to follow through within this provisions lang naman
please
ito.
take
In
note
order
of
to be
the-
complete, no? Because this is, I would say, we will be coming up with our proposal now
Yes,
to the Mother
yes.
Committee. We should understand what we are proposing in relation also with the other provisions. Now,
Okay.
So I now get a clarification on how to address that hiatus. Ito, how do we reconcile now with letter B and letter D? Sinabi nyo dito, after 5 years after the creation of the region, each region may opt for an organic act to be enacted by the parliament in order to form the regional government. So, ibig sabihin, na-create na yung region. Di ba? After 5 years pa sila gagawa ng organic act. Ang sinasabi pa natin dito, permissive pa. May opt for an organic act. So pwede rin yung region, may not opt for an organic act to be enacted by the parliament in order to form a regional government. So ibig sabihin, even assuming naglagay na tayo ng attachment or an ordinance to this proposed constitution, yung Regional Local Government Code. Kasi ang mandate ng Regional Local Government Code based on this general provision is that it shall establish a regional commission. Iyon yung interim government. So ibig sabihin yung regional commission, 5 years, kasi sinasabi dito, after the creation of the region, after 5 years.
Congressman Waminal, I think the RB 808 has its own version, as its own answer to your question.
The resolution of both houses?
Yes.
But probably, we can have that. But remember, this is their proposal. Probably we can reconcile, but we are asking them first because this is their proposal. How do we address?
Who would answer the question? Mr. Malaya?
Your Honor, the wording is permissive because if the region so desires, they may continue with the regional commission as their regional government. That is our proposal. However, if the members of Congress would want that all regions should make their own organic act, then they can so propose. It's up to you as members of the Constituent Assembly. But in our deliberations, we were talking to several members, several governors. They were saying that maybe what we need in our region is a regional commission as our regional government. If that is the case, then they should be given the opportunity to continue on as a regional commission.
Okay. Just last, in relation to that, magkaroon ito ng self-serving, Kasi, sino members ng regional commission? They are the incumbent governors and mayors of the highly urbanized. So, pwede pala magsabi, hindi na tayo magkaroon ng organic act. They can perpetuate powers. If gawin natin permissive. So, ibig sabihin, pwede lang, ito lang status ko. Ito lang yung, we will maintain the regional commission. Magkaroon ng revolusyon yan. Di ba? Kasi ang magiging powers ng federal government is, sa regional commission, merge yan Di ba? Sila ang legislative, sila ang executive. But composed of executive officials because they are the governors and mayors of highly urbanized city. So, yun lang, at least na-clarify nyo, at least for our guidance, so that whether or not, we will adopt such particular proposal. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Congressman
Mr.
Waminal.
Resource Speakers. Salamat, Professor.
The RDH author would like to make a comment on
Yes,
that issue.
with due respect from the group of Professor Tayaw and with due respect also to Congressman Waminal, I disagree with the proposal Congressman Waminal, because I wanted that at the time, their proposal, yes, I disagree. Because at the time of the approval of the Constitution, I want that the elections be immediately held, so that the new sets of eligible and the one chosen by the people would start the federal state.
Thank you. Noted. Next to interpolate, Representative Ronald Cusalan.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Yes, we are now in Article 10. May I may go back to Article 1, which I missed. I came in late. No, Article 1.
This is not the...
Section 1, I mean. Section 1, Article 10.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. On the territorial and political boundaries, because under the 87 Constitution, it says that Section 1 says the territorial and political subdivision of the Republic of the Philippines are the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. And the next sentence here says that there shall be an autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao and the Cordilleras as herein provided. I was looking at the draft of the proposed resolution 08 and that proposed of the PDP Laban Federalism Institute na wala po yung autonomous regions for Muslim Mindanao and the Cordillera. So may I know what happened to that that particular section?
Your Honor, if you will please refer to the proposal of the PDP Laban. It's actually there. We did not remove the Cordillera. We just inserted regions and autonomous regions created by Organic Act and ratified under a plebiscite by virtue of the 1987 Constitution. So we're actually retaining it, Your Honor.
Yes, but well, autonomous regions, as mentioned here, refers to federal autonomy, federal autonomous regions, not the kind of autonomy which we have pursued all this long in the Cordillera region and Muslim Mindanao. Ayaw namin ma-define na ganun because autonomy for us, Cordilleras, and I'm sure also for Muslim Mindanao, is a quest for self-determination and identity. Yun ang isang basic namin for autonomy, not just a regular federal autonomy. We want an autonomy which would recognize our culture, customs, and traditions pursuant to our quest for self-determination and identity. Kaya I would disagree with this proposal because removing this sentence, there shall be an autonomous region for Muslim Mindanao and the Cordilleras is herein provided. Speaking as a lawyer, in the future it might be misinterpreted, kung hindi may specify dito. Kaya ang ko is, it has to remain in the proposal. Autonomous region for the Cordilleras and Muslim Mindanao. Like for example, Madam Chair, if the BBL is not approved now and the bill on federalism is approved, wala nang constitutional basis ang Muslim Mindanao to ask for an autonomous region in the future. Sasabihin na lang nila, nandyan na autonomy. But yan ang ayaw nilang autonomy. That is the federal concept of autonomy. Ibang concept namin ng autonomy. Kaya it was in place here in the 1987 Constitution.
I think that's noted.
Madam, Honorable Congressman Cosalan, actually po kaya merong separate na kahit na the draft constitution of the PDP Laban Federalism Institute enumerates the different political units, no? And kahit meron ng kine-create na regional government doon, minention pa din yung Cordillera at Bangsamoro. Kasi nga it's in reference to the different context of autonomy of the Cordillera and the Bangsamoro. Pero kung sa tingin po ninyo, as you've said as a lawyer, kasi nga we're benchmarking from the current Article 10, for example, na dapat talaga separate yung idea mo ng autonomous region. Perhaps kung ano po yung proposal ninyo na mailagay natin yung the same provision. Kasi sa intindi po namin, Madam Chair, hindi naman nabago, no? Kasi sineparate namin yung regional government sa Cordillera and Bangsamoro. But if you think, Congressman, that ibang article siya or ibang section, of course, we should consider that because we're taking off exactly from the need to recognize, no, the different situation in the Cordillera and the Bangsamoro.
I think Representative Cosalan is right. You just have to express actually here because under the principle of exclusio unius, exclusio alterius, something like that. If it is not included here, so it's deemed excluded. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to be very, very
We agree, Your Honor.
explicit. So can we call now on anything
Yes,
else?
so that's the only point I would like to raise, Madam Chairperson, because I might not be in the future meetings and makaligtaan ito.
Please take note.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Congressman Cosalan. So next to interpolate is Representative Salo. Okay, the next is Deputy Speaker Garin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Sir, going again to the regions, how would you, kasi wala pa yata yung identification of regions, how would you determine the regions? Kasi it's very generic lang ito consisting of provinces, cities, municipalities.
Your
Would
Honor,
you follow the current regions?
Your Honor, in our deliberations, there are many different schools of thought on how to go about this. Some of them were saying, let's just put the criteria in the Constitution and let the different regions apply for statehood as what happened in other areas. The position of the study group is that we should immediately put the composition of the regional governments or the regions in the Constitution. However, the study group is just a small group of people, who were brought together by the Senate President to study this matter. We do not have the resources to go province by province and do consultations.
What would
we have
be
no
the criteria
proposal.
you would have you discussed?
Yes, Your Honor. This the same criteria as the ones did in other countries. Usually, it's about ethnicity or the same ethnicity or ethnic background or the linguistic background. Number two, they have a history of working together as a unit. There's also the question of economic viability. There has to be some form of tax base wherein they have some resources to start with. And what other criteria? More or less along those lines, Your Honor.
And how would we arrive to that? Because if we rely on the current division right now, baka dehado yung ibang lugar sa the richer areas. Or, for example, I'm from Region 6, I'm from Iloilo. It's composed of Guimaras, Iloilo, Antique, Aklan, and Capiz. If you do that, never magkakaroon ng governor from Guimaras. Kasi yung Iloilo, tatakpan niya lahat niyan kasi marami yung botante niya Or, it's, or I think it goes with the other regions.
Your Honor, that's one of the reasons why we are proposing the regional commission model as an interim. Because rather than go through direct elections of the regional governor, we would rather that, consistent with our proposal for a parliamentary system, the regional governor should also be elected by the members of the regional assembly. So it will be the members of the regional assembly now who will elect a regional chief executive for that specific region.
So parang, halimbawa, kada probinsya may 6 na representatives just to equalize the...
Yes, Your Honor. That's our proposal.
Didihado na naman yung Iloilo dyan. Ang laki namin One thing, sir, another issue that concerns me about the division. Because isn't there supposed to be, like an assessment of the assets of each province? Parang, I can only talk about my region kasi that's what I know most. Halimbawa, Guimaras has big resources on marine as well as they're famous for their mangoes. Their agriculture is very good. May mga problems din on their vulnerable sila on typhoons. Capiz has big potential in seafoods. Meron siyang, or maybe Aklan has big potential in tourism, not only Boracay, but there are also other areas. Antique has its own assets as well. Di ba kailangan niya i-assess muna kung ano ba yung potential ng kada probinsya para, because that's what we are supposed to push for as a region. Pero pag pinagsama-sama mo yung mga kulang yung assets, tapos sa Metro Manila, malalaki yung assets. No, I mean, I just want to know if there was an extensive study on this. Kasi sayang naman, I mean, I know you're just proposing, you have a draft, pero I want to know kung if there's already an ongoing assessment pa. Kasi, how do they call that? Resource assessment yata yan? Or evaluation?
Thank you for asking that question, Your Honor. No? Tagal na namin pinopropose din yan doon sa nag-convene sa amin kasi para at least malaman natin exactly kung ano yung viability ng mga regions. No? Sa totoo lang, kumbaga meron ang ginawa ang PIDS, tama-tama nandito si Dr. Jun Meral, meron din kaming ginawa funded by JICA, no? Pero hindi kasi ito kompleto, tsaka iba kasi kapag ang gumagawa mismo ng study gobyerno. Para ang hirap pa naming kunin yung datos sa BIR. Kinailangan pa naming humingi ng paraan kung paano gamitin yan. Now, having said that, kaya nga po doon sa pagporma ng regional government, nakadepende doon sa regional and local government code. So, as it is, Congress, or if the Constituent Assembly feels that it should be the new parliament that will enact the regional and local government code as asked by the good Congressman Oaminal earlier, doon mo ngayon madedetermine exactly kung ano yung mga parameters. Hindi naman pwede nating ilagay lahat doon sa Constitution. Second, kaya nga po two-step process yung suggestion kasi sa una, kinonsider namin yung maliliit na LGU that definitely will hesitate to be part of a regional government. The reason why we're proposing a collegial executive body also at the regional level so that both big and small local government units will have equal sort of voice, no? And that the implementation of regional policies and projects would have the same participation on the part of the different provinces. Third, hindi namin pa dinetermine yung eksakto ano bang klaseng ano-anong local government units yung nandyan. In fact, because there are so many instances where you have forums in different provinces, what we have been trying to suggest, at least with the local political leaders, is perhaps you can already start talking amongst each other. And from what I know, for example, in yung Bicol region, medyo advanced yan, no? And Region 9 and 10 are also a good number of local chief executives in Regions 9 and 10 have also started to talk among each other how they think a regional government would look like, no? So that when the process of determining exactly how a regional government would look like, pwede mo nang ilagay yun doon. At the end of the day, ma'am, tama yung sinabi ninyo, marami kasing parameters for creating a regional government. And depending on where you sit, one always has this tendency to put more weight on a particular element, no? Ano ba to? Identity ba? let's say in the case of Bangsamoro and the Cordillera, regardless of size and capacity, the more important thing is identity, precisely because of its historical and cultural background, and so on. So the effort of the study group is such that we attempted to at least put together or list down the parameters so that in the process of drafting exactly how a regional and local government code would look like later, andyan na yung mga elements na pwedeng ilagay.
Okay, thank you, Professor Tayo. Okay,
So does that mean that it's wiser not to specify in the Constitution? Or
it's their proposal.
yun yung proposal niyo, sir? Or is it because you lack the resources at that time?
Actually, ideally, dapat naka-specify yan dyan.
Okay.
Kaya nga po, very general yung nilagay na kasi parang menu pa lang so that when the Constituent Assembly deliberates later, pwede nyo nang lagyan.
Madam Chair, I just want to request lang sana from Professor or the other resource speakers.
Please take
if
note.
they can just give parameters, suggested parameters on how to determine the regions para we have an idea na rin po. Thank you po.
Okay.
Sir, thank you, Madam Chair.
Please take note of the concerns of our Deputy Speaker Karin. So next is, of course, the Vice Chair in charge of Article 4, Representative Ching Biloso. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Anybody from Mr. Concho to Professor Tayaw, to Mr. Malaya, anybody among you can answer my questions, no? Para mabilis. The present constitution we have, Article 18, Section 6, says, the incumbent president shall continue to exercise legislative powers until the first Congress is convened. The reason for this is because, you know, with EDSA 1, President Cory exercised the legislative functions of Congress. We have holdover provisions here, President, special, etc. It is my view that we really have to submit this revised constitution on or before President Duterte steps down. Because failing in that, I doubt if we will ever have a revised constitution. So you agree with that? Thank you for that. And on the assumption that the committee, the group we have, the Committee on Constitutional Amendments, will come up with a final draft to be submitted to the Constituent Assembly, say by next year. That would mean before the 2019 elections. What would be your view? As definitely we'll be hearing a lot of criticisms from media, from other sectors. What will be your view if Congress, the Congress we have now, bicameral, will also have a holdover right power until the revised constitution is ratified?
Your Honor, to be honest, we did not discuss this in the study group about the holdover, so we would rather leave it to the wisdom of Congress if there is a need to have holdovers.
But the reason I'm asking you that is I'd like to know beforehand if you would be against that position. Simply put, if you will be one of the critics that we are to expect. Mr. Tayaw, PDP Laban, Mr. Miral.
I'm not sure, Your Honor, if I got the question right. You mean you're asking us what we
Will you side with the holdover position that the ratified constitution will provide?
You mean if I will agree?
Yeah,
Congressman.
personally.
Actually ho, ang hirap sagutin yan kung wala pa yung eksaktong provision. Pangalawa po, let's say, even if we can consider it, sir, I will be honest with you, of course, in terms of, what's this, popularity. Diyan naman nagre-respond po yung publiko. So, sa totoo lang, ito pong tama yung pinoint out ninyo kung hindi po matatapos itong pagbabalangkas ng bagong saligang batas sa panahon ni Pangulong Duterte. I will agree, hindi na namin nakikita na mangyayari pa ito, no? Pero nakadepende po masyado doon sa popularity ng presidente at even ng public institutions yung pagpursige ng pagbabago. Kaya kung dumating dun sa punto na, let's say, may mga ancillary issues na nangyari na naging unpopular, mahihirapan din talaga po tayong mag-push nito. Now, personally po, if you're going to ask me, I'm sure, of course, dun po sa mga public pronouncements ko, I'm often interviewed also on by the media. I would always underscore the need for systemic change. In fact, some of us have already been, tagged as Dutertards or what, but we've been telling them that even, let's say, during the time of former President FBR, former President ERAP, and former President GMA, we've been, at least most of the members of the study group have been consistent in pushing for or at the very least contributing to the discussion on systemic change. So, ang problema kasi sa politika natin, Congressman, tama po kayo, masyado kasing naka-anchor sa personality. So, mahihirapan talaga tayo kung ako pong tatanungin ninyo. Pero kung ang pag-uusapan lang systemic change, logically, hindi mo maiwasan yung holdover eh. Pero paano mo i-explain sa publiko kung hindi na popular yung nagpupush nun? So, doon tayo siguro magka-problema.
Okay, that problem of popularity will not to me be a problem because if the administration of Duterte and particularly Congress will no longer be that popular, I doubt if the proposed revised constitution will be ratified. But on the assumption that October 2018 will be the barangay elections, on the assumption of that, and the ratification of the proposed revised constitution will be taken in budget purposes as a rider. Sabay sila doon para ma-justify naman yung 6.2 billion pesos na barangay elections cost. It essentially would mean that Congress will continue to function until the next, until the first election that will be called for in the revised constitution. Definitely. If it will be 2019 May, then it should be 2019. Then from October 2018, well, anyway, mag-expire pa 2019, no? And if no election rather is held 2019, mag-hold over ba yan? Then until when? Ano ang position ng resource persons namin? Because after 2019, we'll still be 3 years away, 2022. Ano sa tingin nyo maganda? Maganda yung kami magtatatanong ng mahihirap na questions kisa bago kasi tingnan mo 2018 very specific ako, no? October 2018 elections barangay, okay, sabay ang ratification ng revised constitution. Wala pa kaming problema because we have been elected until 2019. But what if the Constitution says this revised Constitution shall be effective immediately or effective January 1, 2019? Anong mangyayari sa Congress? Sino ngayon na magle-legislate?
Briefly answer that.
Yes, Your Honor. To be honest, we did not really have thought about this matter yet. However, Your Honor, if you will give us some time to think about it and come out with a position, I understand that the committee will still convene for one more hearing. Maybe we can submit our position at that time, Your Honor.
Thank you. To be studied yet. The answer to your leading question will still be studied.
Is to be studied.
Madam Chair, I had made that already earlier.
I will complicate the problem further.
Okay. Another
I'm leading it, complicating it.
another point to take note.
The assumption na talagang masama ang tingin ng mga tao sa Kongreso. At meron naman tayong matitino na mga tao sa military. Just as there are matitino sa kalaban ng military. Magaling pwede maging presidente, si Congressman Tinio. Pwede maging presidente, si Congressman Zarate. Anong tingin nyo? Paano mamimili ang tao kung sino sa dalawang forces nito ang pwedeng magpatakbo ng bayan?
I think we just have to give them time to study again. So please take note.
Last two questions lang po. Binabasa ko yung proposed revisions nyo. Ang akin, I still believe, tama ito, sanay tayo pumili ng presidente, so okay itong presidential. But bakit naman, alam naman natin na ang bicameral, ako as a student of politics and of law, hindi ko maintindihan bakit dalawa pang sangay ang kailangang gumawa ng batas. Nagiging duplicitous. And worse is, we have Congressman Tinio here, ang proposed batas niya, i-reject lang ng hindi nakakaintindi ng batas doon sa Senado. No names na lang ako doon. Bakit gusto niyo pa ng dalawang sangay? Meron tayong parliament, meron pa tayong assembly.
Your Honor, we studied most of the federal countries in the world, even the non-federal countries, and you will find that legislatures of many countries in the world, majority, have two chambers. Some have more powers, some have lesser powers. In the instance of the Philippines, under our present system, both chambers have the same powers, practically the same powers. I understand your frustration that sometimes it's a duplication of functions. What the Senate does, the House of Representatives also does. That is why in our proposal, rather than having laws passed by Congress also go through the same three readings in the Senate, we propose that the Senate's power be limited to consent legislation, meaning it should only go through one reading. The purpose of this, Your Honor, is the same as in many parliamentary democracies in the world, those with House of Lords. In a parliamentary democracy, the upper house is normally called the House of Lords, and the purpose of the House of Lords is to protect against haphazardly passed or unpopular legislation. So, and there are many instances wherein this has been proven effective. So, we submit, Your Honor, that for our purposes, we should continue with the bicameral legislature. Also because federal constitutions all over the world always have a second chamber because the upper house serves to represent the regions. Okay, so that's a main feature of a federal system. Our system is we elect our senators by at large by the entire nation. In a federal system, the upper house should represent the regions. So it is our contention that if we really want to empower the regions and ensure there is regional representation in the legislature, the upper house should be retained with limited consent legislation representing the regions.
The present constitution we have, minus yung nakakainis na provisions, especially mabutit nandito. So, dapat nandito si Kasilaw Ito ang kapartner ko pagdating sa land reform. Minus inutile provisions in the constitution. Tingnan mo na lang itong land reform. Ang naging land reform natin, there is a provision, hindi masyadong malakas ang pagkakasabi. Land reform dapat ibinibigay, hindi ipinapautang ang lupa. Ang nangyayari kasi ngayon, pinapautang ang lupa sa magsasaka, inaagaw sa may-ari ng lupa, land bank papasok, magbabayad sa may-ari ng papel, and then ibibigay sa magsasaka, pero babayaran ng magsasaka without support. Minus those, as I said, nakakainis na provisions in the Constitution, okay sana ito, especially if you take a look at Article 6, 7, and 8. Legislative, Executive, Judicial. Doon sa legislative, pwede naman talaga unicameral. And what I personally was thinking is that the congressmen should continue to be elected. Sila na talaga ang legislature. And all the provisions na essential pagdating sa power of the purse, sa legislation, should be exercised by this unicameral legislative body. Pagdating sa executive, doon lang sa local government units, and I'm talking about Article 10, ang iniisip ko, masyadong magastos if we will have so many states. 3 states to me would be enough, like Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And then, for example, for Visayas, we have 3 regions, Region 6, 7, and 8. We will have a state governor. Who is the state governor? This will be elected by the people in Visayas. 3 regions lang kami. Ang unang mananalo will be disqualified for the next election until such time that all regions will be represented via state government in the running of the state. Dito sa judiciary, konti lang problema. Ang gusto ko lang siguro baguhin pa nga itong ombudsman. Yung prosecution, etc. But nung binabasa ko itong proposed this really has to be reconciled with the working draft that we are referring to, and I'm referring to Resolution 08. Madam Chair, yun lang po, ang pinaka-importante ko lang is yung timeline, because as you all agree, we really have to finish this preferably before 2019. Otherwise, if you will push this half mark na ng Duterte administration, baka hindi pa ito matuloy.
Okay, the chair takes note of your concerns. So we have 3 resource persons here who we have to call yet. Governor Ms. Angelica Sanchez, Director for Policy Development, and LPP ba yan? And a representative of the League of Provinces of the Philippines. Yeah. And we also have here a representative from the League of Cities of the Philippines, Mr. Godofredo Qualteros, Senior Policy Officer. And of course, we have here from the CPBRD, Dr. Romelo Miral Jr. So can we give the floor now to Dr. Miral for your comment or for your stance?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Chairperson. I think the shift to a federal form of government, the most salient feature from a unitary to a federal would be the creation of the regional government. That would actually distinguish it from the decentralization process that we have undertaken in the past. So that the creation of the regional government is very critical in this federalism process. And we took note of the observation earlier regarding the delineation of functions between the regional government and the different local government units. In particular, for example, say the provincial government and the regional government. And we have actually undertaken a case study of the only regional government that we have in the Philippines, which is the autonomous region for Muslim Mindanao. And we have noted that the functions assigned to the regional government and the local government units, particularly the provincial government, are not very much different. In fact, they're only differs in terms of the scope or the area of the coverage. But when you look at the functions of the regional government, the provincial government, and the different law, there's not much difference. That's why we have this problem in the ARMM about the unclear assignment of authority or accountability among the different local government units and the regional government. In fact, in the ARMM, most of the functions that are being actually carried out or services being delivered by the local government units are being carried out by the regional government. But unfortunately, the resources, like for example, the internal revenue allotment that's supposed to support the delivery of the devolved functions are with the local government unit and not with the regional government, such that the regional government would have to depend on the national government for its annual allocation of funds to carry out the functions that are devolved to the regional government. So these are the things that should not happen when we create a regional government that would just be adding another layer without clear delineation of function. So that's one thing that we have to consider. And the other thing that was raised earlier is how do we create the regional governments or the regional territories? What are the criteria? In fact, there are already criteria when it comes to the creation of regions, like for example, the common ethnicity, languages. In fact, it also considered the topography or the geography, like the existence of mountain ranges, body of waters. That those were already actually partly considered in the creation of the regional administration that we have, the administrative regions that we have. That's why it can be a basis for the creation of the regional government. But the next question that's being asked is whether are they viable or not. And because initially when these regions were created, they were just a means of really facilitating the flow of resources or assistance to the different localities. And so when we ask if they can govern or if they have the revenues actually or the resources to carry out the function of the state, that is another question. So in fact, there were studies being recently floated. One is, I can cite, is the study by Dr. Corpus that was presented in one of the forum. And he talks about the what would be the viable regions. And he mentions that there could only be like three regions that could be viable. And this is actually the same as the position of Professor Sikat when he talks about the establishment of just the Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and probably the National Capital Territory, which is the National Capital Region. And of course, the autonomous region for Muslim Mindanao, because it has a specific reason or rationale for the creation of that regional government. Because if we look at, say, those three regions, they're actually the same size as Taiwan, as Korea, or South Korea. And so if you're thinking about state within our region, because when we talk about the state, there's almost similar to a country. So these are the most viable regions. And if we look only at these regions, we don't have much problem when we talk about the levels of government to be retained. Because if we have too many regions, like say 18 regions, then we have this issue about the duplicity between the provincial and the regional. What would be the function of the province vis-a-vis the region? But if we have like only 3 or 4 big regions, then we can actually just retain the local government system, and that will not add much to the cost, or even there'll be an issue about the viability. And here in Congress, I've also witnesses that the different Mindanaoans, like the regional, the members of Congress from Mindanao would gather together when it's budget deliberation period. So somehow they have been working together. The members from Mindanao, the members from Visayas. So I think these 3 big regions would be a good starting point when we think about creating regional governments. For the meantime, that would be my inputs.
Thank you, Dr. Miral. Any question, comment? Okay. Deputy Speaker Garin.
Sir, is it possible, like if we do it 3, Luzon, Visayas, just for an example, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, pwede mga pa yan after?
It depends on how we praise the Constitution.
Yes, sir.
Like for example, I think as a starting point, it can.
Does that ever happen in other countries? Na, halimbawa, gumawa ka ng isang region. Ang Cebu, malayo sa Iloilo. Eventually, sabihin namin, ineffective to. Pwede ba, 2 na kaming region. Does that happen in other countries? No?
Your Honor, it doesn't happen in other countries precisely. Yun kaya po yung proseso na inadapt namin, we sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, leave it to the political leaders to decide how to form. Kasi ideal yung sinasabi ni Dr. Jun Merale na actually sa proposal ni Dr. Jerry Sikat, 3+1, which is NCR, parang Washington, D.C. Pero kasi hindi lang yung economic viability kasi ang consideration mo dyan. It's like, for example, if you look at other federal democracies, even meron din silang maliliit na state na dependent talaga sa federal o central government. Pero hindi mini-merge yan dun sa next big state or regional government for purposes of viability. Nire-retain yung kanilang autonomy. Kaya asymmetric sila. So kaya nga po doon sa proposal namin, naglagay kami ng menu so that yung tinatanong po ninyo kanina, yun yung pwede mong maging batayan. But if there's anything that is definite, una, hindi natin pwedeng i-consider as benchmark yung 81 na probinsya natin. Masyadong madami yun. Hindi din natin pwedeng gamiting benchmark yung 18 na existing regions kasi obviously talagang maraming mahina doon. So we might want to at least consider merging 2 regions together. But how we put that in place that will be acceptable to the local government units is another question entirely. Kaya tama yung sinabi nyo kanina, dapat lagyan mo talaga ng 1, 2, 3 reasons bakit kailangan halimbawa Region 9 and 10 magkasama o yung buong Region 6 and 7 and so on. So para at least meron tayong konkretong picture.
Kasi Madam Chair, kasi like, Dr. Mirala, no? Halimbawa, alam mo naman dito sa atin, ang Negros, Negros Island, sineperate, binalik, diba? Tapos Region 4B ba? A and B. Separate, balik na naman, tapos hiwalay naman. So eventually, if you define it, baka mag-away-away na naman, tapos separate na naman. It's just that, that's what happened historically to us. So,
yung pong creation natin ng like local government units and even the regions, actually it's driven by the pooling of resources at the center, and then for each area trying to get as much from that pooled resources at the center. So, but by creating a local government unit or a region, you automatically get a share of that common pool resource. So that's one of the main motivation why we always want to create, in order to assure that we will get a share of that resources at the center. But the idea of federalism is to
Regional governments.
to decentralize. I mean, to remove that common pool resource at the center and bring it to the different levels, so that you can easily link the benefit and the cost from the provision of different services.
So the determination of how many regions will be created will be the subject of your proposal too.
Yeah, ma'am, I will refer you to an expert on this who is studying the urban and regional planning. There's a good study on this, and I can.
So please take note of
yes,
the comments.
Committee to the
Okay, thank you. The next is from the LPP. Ms. Sanchez, Director for Policy Development. Now, we'd like to know, is that the official position of the LPP?
Yes, Madam Chair. I can speak insofar as the official position of the League is concerned, as contained in a resolution, Madam Chair.
Given copies of the resolution?
Yes, Madam Chair,
Okay.
we'll send you copies po.
So, okay, we take your word that this is official. Okay, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, the League of Provinces support the road leading to federalism. We, however, have four issues here. Basically, first po, although Professor Tayaw already mentioned that 81 states would be unwieldy, actually, the current position of the League was that all provinces and highly urbanized cities shall be considered as the state. Although we are amenable to a proviso for amalgamation for smaller provinces and a SIT and an HUC to amalgamate into one. So probably will not end up with more than 100 states. And then second is, as far as taxation is concerned, the League of Provinces stand that every state shall be empowered to impose within its territory or jurisdiction taxes, charges, and fees not being imposed by the federal government. So what we're saying here po, yung residual taxes po, it's the states who are going to collect. And then the position here po is collection at source. It's so the states are going to collect the taxes and then remit the share of the national government. So parang there's income retention. And then third, the state shall have a just share of not less than 60% of all federal taxes, charges, and fees, and all other income. Kasi in the current constitution, it's just the LGU shall have a just share of the national taxes. So this time, it is the sentiment of the governors to include the charges and fees and all other income.
proposal dito.
Actually po, 60 is just the base po. Not
lower
less,
than
not
60.
lower than 60. Yun po yung ano namin, the position where we're comfortable with not 60%, but if it goes higher, we'd welcome it very much po. And then, third po, on the PNP, the league is of the position that the state shall have the supervision and control over the PNP and other related security agencies that operate within its territory and jurisdiction. So those are just the 4 points po that the league has.
What's your
so far
position
stands.
on that, as far as the PNP is concerned? Because I know that the local governments usually go for, having control over the PNP.
Actually po, the position of the provinces is requesting for supervision and control po.
Okay, those are the 4. Oh, thank you. Please submit your resolution later.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. The next, from the League of Cities of the Philippines, Mr. Qualteros.
Yes, good morning, Chair.
Again, is
Madam
that an
Chair.
official position?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is the official position of the League
And
of
you will
Cities.
submit also your
Yes, po.
resolution
Actually,
later.
last December 2016, Mayor Edgardo Pamintuan was present during the Senate Committee on Constitutional Amendments, chaired by Franklin Drilon. And if I may be allowed to read the position of the LCP,
Yes.
a portion of it.
Proceed, please.
The LCP supports the move towards the conversion of our system of government from presidential unitary system to federal system. We believe the federal system would provide for genuine and greater autonomy to the regions and the local governments. There would be no more imperial Manila that lords over the allocation of our national resources that ironically come from the regions. The federal system would allow us to manage our own resources and directly benefit from them. It gives us better opportunities at charting our own development based on our needs and resources, depending on our own efforts. A case in point is that while regional development is tackled in the Regional Development Council, we still need to pass through many review and approval processes of the national government. In many instances, we need to lobby with concerned national agencies and even national politicians to get our projects off the ground. We think that the states or autonomous regions under the federal system of government would be able to develop and implement big projects without too many hands and heads that complicate and delay decision making and action. We all know that corruption occurs when too many hands are dipped into a project. On a particular note, we also but for longer terms of elected local officials. 3 years are too short for a good local executive who may be forced to immediately engage in various ways of politicking and patronage politics just to ensure a next term. As to how many years should be added to the terms of local officials, we would leave it to the Congress or Congress acting as constituent assembly. As to parts of Constitution that we need to amend or revise, if I may, Your Honor, basically the declaration of principles and state policies as well as other provisions that would cater the need in changing the form or system of government must be revised. For instance, from presidential unitary to federal system, adopt a charter change to effect the necessary changes in the governance, local autonomy, more defined decentralization of powers and administration, global competition in terms of doing business with local and foreign investors, public officials' accountability. To alter the taxing system, the shares of LGUs from the national wealth taxes as well as to its shares in the utilization and development of natural resources. To realize this goal, amendments have to be introduced on Article 10 by giving greater fiscal and administrative autonomy to local government units. The local government units can, by law, be granted greater shares of taxes paid by the producers or traders of consumer of goods and services which are presently paying taxes in municipalities or cities where their headquarters are located. In the language of the local government code, this we call the situs of taxation. That would be all, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. So please submit your resolution. Any comment on the positions of the two leagues?
Ma'am, to Ma'am Sanchez, you mentioned about taxation earlier. Na the local government should have discretion on the imposition of taxes.
Yes,
Except
the
for
residual
the
taxes po, except for what the national government
residual
collects.
would be the local government taxes. Is it?
Madam Chair, the other taxes which the national government are not collecting. So, because under the current local government code, the taxes which LGUs can collect have already been predetermined. So, the position we are taking now is that all the taxes which national government is collecting, local governments can now collect.
Basta nasa NIRC siya, yun yung nire-refer mo na national taxes.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So that would mean income tax, value-added tax, lahat-lahat na taxes nandun. So you wouldn't you want the local government to have more taxing power?
Yes, actually, Madam Chair, that's what we're batting for, a broader tax base. So probably the national government can, after determining what taxes the national government are collecting, after that, local governments can now determine which taxes they can collect as long as it's not being collected by the national government. So that makes the taxing powers of the local governments broader than it is now.
So, ma'am, just for your group to consider, even in Switzerland, di ba iba-ibang, ano pa tawag dyan, sir? Canton. When I was practicing as a tax lawyer, we study each canton for tax planning. Kung saan yung mas konti yung sales tax or saan yung wala yung withholding tax on any income of foreigners, that's how we plan. So if we have that set up here in the federal and the states, then maybe the states with less resources can make their area a tax haven for some companies, and hence the companies will go there. I mean, I think it's something, since we're overhauling the whole system anyway, I think your group can study that. It's parang IT haven, for example. Any income or investment on information technology would be advantageous in Region 3, for example. O kung ibang industry in another, if your group would consider that, I think it's also a good proposal if with certain amount of study and research. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, we'll take note of that.
Okay. Congressman Fortun.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just would like to ask the LPP. Kasi ang earlier discussion was much into the creation of regional governments, and there's been extensive debate on how to go about it. And we're surprised to hear from the LPP that the direction they want is not really towards the creation of regional governments, no, but rather converting the provinces and the highly urbanized cities into smaller states. No, I just would like to ask, because this is more or less reflective of the sentiment of the local government units. No, while we talk about regional governments here, what we're hearing from the LPP is different, no, from what we want. No, so may I know how this position was arrived at?
Mr. Chair, I think it's really more for efficiency and effectiveness and economy. That's why they really thought of converting the provinces and the HUCs into the states. So in that way, you don't have to add another layer of subnational government, Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair, may I hear from the LCP if this is also the sentiment of the LCP?
Yes, Madam Chair, actually we don't have the concrete proposals about that. It's from the League of Provinces, but we have not come up yet with our own proposals. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, did you talk about, at least talk about the creation of regional governments? Because the proposal of the LPP is actually includes you as well, no?
Yeah,
Because this includes the highly urbanized cities.
Yes, Madam Chair, we actively participated during the DILG Federalism Workshop, wherein the regional government was discussed. While we don't oppose, but our principles have not come up yet, or they are not yet in common understanding as to the proposed HUC to be converted into a smaller state as proposed by the LPP.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just one last, Madam Chair. I'm just concerned, Madam Chair, because both versions, the House version and the PDP Laban Federal Institute version, all mention of the creation of regional governments or commission for that matter, but the sentiment of the LGUs is contrary, no, to the proposal under both versions. Can we hear from our resource persons regarding the sentiment of the local government units, more or less?
Okay. We can ask the author of the, what's this? RPE?
House version.
It's the House version.
Thank you, Congressman Fortun, for that question. As far as 81 provinces, and I've looked at the regional GDP, I think it is not viable, and some of the provinces, or even a province except NCR, could really qualify to be a state. First, their income is very low, and then the area is that small. The inhabitants are not much. So probably we could also look into these conditions or criteria, how we can really form a region or a state. So to my mind, having 81 provinces as states is something I cannot imagine of. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minority Leader De Vera. Any other, yes, reaction from the PDP Laban Study Group?
Thank you, Congressman Fortun, for that question. We feel that having the provinces as states would be very difficult because some of our provinces are very small. Maybe Pangasinan or Quezon with very large populations and a lot of people and a lot of tax base would be able to survive. If we do shift to a federal system and just use the existing provinces, I think it will just be the same. It will not be, we're empowering very small LGUs with very little resources, and it will be the same, again, IRA, because many of our local governments are 80%, 90% IRA dependent. So we're just continuing the system of dependency that has been continuing. And we're trying to empower the regional governments and the LGUs by using the region as a support mechanism for LGUs so that they are in a stronger position to negotiate with the federal government. By maintaining the provinces, which are very small, they will not be in a good negotiating position with the federal government. So I think it defeats the entire purpose of federalism if we just use the small provinces as the states. And if we also do that, we will have the smallest states in the world. Because if you look at the other federal countries, the states are for purposes of supporting local governments become stronger by just shifting, by just using the provinces as the base for the states. This I think will be the smallest states or federal states in the world as we see it. So I think it defeats the entire purpose of the shift to federal system. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes,
Okay,
Madam
thank
Chair,
you.
just one last. I was asking this, Madam Chair, because I just wanted to at least convince the LGUs to consider, you know, the versions presented here in the committee, because ultimately when we submit this to the people for during a plebiscite, we would need the support of the LGUs.
Support for the ratification. from the
I just want to because the comment earlier was that there was already an DILG consultation. Can we request
Mr. Quarteros?
So I guess, Madam Chair, there's already findings from the DILG, ano? Maybe next time we can have also
Yes.
DILG kasi yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I think we invited the active the DILG. Yeah, they have not sent anyone. So perhaps we will to attend on October 4 meeting. October 4 meeting. So the same goes for your president, diba? National president, parang he signified his intention to attend in one of the meetings. So October 4. How about the League of...
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Nancy, no? Okay, Sanchez.
Yes, Madam Chair, just a rejoinder to Congressman Fortun's statement earlier. Madam Chair, so the League of Provinces, when they came out with these four positions, there was still no model for a federal government. However, we're still going to have another General Assembly wherein we're going to discuss RBH 08 basically and its features so that we can really come up with a clear position paper, because that time po, and so we were just parang we were trying also to come up with a form of federal government, what form of federal government it's going to take. So this time, since there are already clearer frameworks, clearer models, so we're still going to discuss them, Madam Chair. So this position might take a different stance after another meeting.
Your position is really very, very important. So,
Madam Chair, just to add up to what she's saying.
Yes.
Yes, I confirm that because around 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was able to speak with your president, Governor Ryan Singson, and in fact, he is trying to invite me to speak before you. So I'm getting the authority from the committee and even asked Chairman Roger Mercado, and we were the leadership, if I could be, if I would be allowed to attend to your assembly so that I could defend my RBH number 8. And I confirm that, Madam Chair, I confirm that.
Noted. Is there any other question, comment? The chair declares the meeting adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.